everybody. Today we are going to get into a hand building technique. Now hand building, you can think of it this way. When people think about ceramics, pottery, potters, clay, a lot of times they'll think instantly of people at the potter's wheel, working with the clay, where they're pulling the clay up and getting different forms, and that is definitely a huge part of what potters do. But there's a whole world of working with the clay that doesn't ever use the potter's wheel. And this is the type of working with clay that they've been using for thousands and thousands of years before the potter's wheel was even invented. So this technique of hand building, there's three main techniques within that. And so we're going to cover one of them today, and that's called the pinch technique. So the pinch technique involves pinching. So pinching, go ahead and get your hand going. Hello, hello, hello. So pinching can involve the whole hand, but we're going to look at starting with just two fingers. All right, so the first thing we're going to need is some clay, of course. So how much to get? We don't want to get a whole lot. I'm going to pull some out, see, just got a piece like this. How is that in relation to other things? When I compare it to a baseball, it's way smaller than a baseball. So I get this little lump of clay here. Don't forget, when you're working with your clay, don't leave it wide open the whole time you're working, or later on you're frustrated because your clay is all dried out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I need to get into a ball shape. Now, just the very beginning of this whole pinch thing, just realizing that your fingers pinching the clay, change it to where you want it to be. And this clay is very plastic. The wet clay is very moldable. And so I could do that. Now I could do a kind of larger scale, like I know coming from Minnesota myself, we learned the art of the snowball. It becomes part of our curriculum that you need to make a perfect snowball in 30 seconds to graduate the 5th grade. And you can look that up and you'll find that it's completely not true. But anyway, there's the idea of packing it, there's the idea of rolling it between your hands, there's the idea of rolling it on a table. But one thing is extremely important to understand about whatever you decide to pay attention. See what's happening, and then you'll learn how to feel what's happening. And so if I'm just rolling around and I'm watching some YouTube videos, not paying any attention, I'm rolling and rolling and rolling, well, for one, it's probably not getting so dry because I rolled it for 10 minutes, but also it never turned into the ball shape I was looking for. And so this is something where you just pay attention to what you're doing. Clay work can be almost meditative, just peaceful. You're focused on one thing you're doing. And so maybe just enjoy this experience. Now, I'll tell you, I've been working with this clay and I've been doing all sorts of things. And the longer you work with the clay, the drier it gets. So if I were to sit here and just do the demonstration and continue doing this, in a few minutes, this clay would not be good to use the pinch technique. It'd be far too dry. And so to show you a good technique, I'm going to put this with the clay that I'm refreshing, add a little bit of water to it, and put it in my other bag. And I'm going to get a fresh piece then. Now, I do want to try to get rid of definitely the big cracks that are there. I want it to be smoothed out mostly. It's not going to be like the most absolute perfect ball ever, but it will be pretty nice. And so just a little bit of, I'm just doing a little bit of pinching with my fingers and thumb, trying to get it so it's a little smoother, and that looks pretty good. So now I'm ready to start the pinch technique. All right, so I got the ball ready. Like I said, it's much smaller than a baseball. Now, people can make extremely large pinch pots. Not a great way to start. You want to start small, get the hang of it, get control, and work your way up to larger ones. But right now, I've got the small ball here. Now what I need to do is I need to give likes. Don't forget, like, subscribe, comment, hit that little bell up there, and anyway, wait. Get it together, man. Come on. So we're going to take our thumb and we're going to put it into the ball. So to do this, pull it up here on the table so you can see. I'm going to just press down. And this is where you're going to find out if the clay is extremely dry, you'll have large cracks will happen right away. Mine's not doing that, so I know it's in that great mode of being wet clay, very plastic. And so how far down to go? We want to think about leaving a little space at the bottom. You don't want to go all the way through. Now this little measuring here isn't going to do you a lot of good looking at the screen. Like, how much is that exactly? Well, if you look at the board that you have, We don't want to go any thinner than that because that is really pushing. Someone that's extremely good with their pinch pots can get them that thin, but we're going to be thicker than that. So take a look at that and probably double that. That's how thick we want to leave it at the bottom. Now, how do you know? I'm not measuring it, but you're going to start to get this little sensation of being able to feel how thick something is just by practice. So right now, you're like, I don't know if that's thick enough. But if you've gone all the way through, then certainly bad news. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the pinching technique. Now when I start, I'm basically using just my thumb on the inside, and I'm using 2 fingers out on the outside. And what you want to do is you want to make sure you start near the bottom. And so I'm just going to give a little pinch, and you're going to see the little fingerprints there that I leave on there. And it's not like I mushed it a whole bunch, but enough that I definitely changed the form. And so I do that, and then I just kind of spin it. The one hand is going to spin it, and the other hand is going to pinch. Now, I will stress this right now. Don't start doing a pinch pot where you're pinching with both hands. Our hands are extremely good at doing this, but when you're doing both of them, it's so easy to lose track of what's happening, and you end up overdoing it. I'll tell you, I've seen it many, many times, people using 2 hands for pinching. One hand for pinching, the other one for holding and rolling it around. So what I've been doing is I've really been pinching a lot down here at the bottom. It's like I'll pinch, turn, pinch, turn, pinch, turn, and a little at a time. And once you make it all the way around, take a look. And so I've been going around a couple times. Now at the bottom, it seems really thin. Then I'm going to do a little thing where I'm going to just go like this, and I'm going to feel how thick it feels. So I'm going to go like this, and I'm just testing it. So as I do this, I'm going to feel like, oh, okay, so it's really thin, and then it gets it's a little lumpy right there, and it's thicker, it's getting a little bit thinner, and it gets really thick at the top. So it's your way of measuring is going to be just this sense of feeling where things are at. Now, what I want to do before I go any farther is I want to get rid of any of those lumpy spots. And so as I'm going along and I'm pinching, again, I'm just using 2 fingers and a thumb. It could be these 2 or whatever. But I'm doing this as I go around and around and around and feeling for anything that's a lumpy spot. And if so, I give it a little pinch. So right now, I'm just testing. I'm just seeing how thick does that feel, how thick does it feel, and then, oh, there's a little lumpy spot there, pinch it, and keep going. So when I get to the time I've gone around it many times, it seems like it's the same thickness all the way around. So as I go around it, again, I'm at the bottom area, so upside down here. I'm working in those areas right above here. Then I come up a little bit and I do it the same thing. So I'm getting near to the rim of the little pinch pot, but it's still really thick up there. I want to save that until a little bit closer toward the end. So now I start going through the process where I pinch, turn. Again, you can see the first time I go around, I'm pinching enough that it's leaving little dents on the clay. And if you had some really, really soft clay, you wouldn't have to do much at all to leave the dents in the clay. My clay I can feel is a little bit on the dry side, so if I were to squeeze it really hard, I'm going to get a lot of cracks like that. And so when that happens to you, because it happens, you can just erase them away with moving the clay over itself. So your hands are great tools for all that. And you can just do it as you go, so you don't let the crack get larger and larger. It's harder to deal with at the end. So I'm just going to neaten it up a little bit. Again, I'm not looking for absolute perfection, but if I see a problem starting to happen, it's probably going to get a little bit worse as we go along. So let me keep going around. So I'm up near the top. I pinch, turn, pinch, turn, pinch, turn, pinch, turn. So as you can see, I do a lot of pinching and a lot of turning. So as I'm doing that, I'm trying to really look for that even wall that I can see and I can feel. It's time to test it. Again, I'm just going to do this, testing whether you do 1 finger or 2. You want to just go and you're feeling for any lumpy spots and give them a little pinch. So this is a great time to really focus on that quality of it. Now this is something that you can do with your eyes closed, technically, because I'm feeling it. I can't really see where it's thick. Now I can see on the outside if there's a lump on the outside, but I also know that I can feel when there's an inconsistency. So as I go around the whole thing, it seems like I've done a decent job of having it very even, I did have some cracks along the way. I rubbed those away. As I was getting near the top, it did create a few more of these. And I'll just rub them in right now. So while the clay is still wet, it's very easy to do that. Don't add water to it. Don't add slip to it. See if it will work just by rubbing it out. So as I'm doing the pinching, the fingers and the thumb are doing the work. They're the ones that are actually changing the form of the clay, but they're also measuring. So that constant repetitive open and closing, I'm going to start to feel the differences. And when you feel them, then it goes back to working mode and squeezes those out a little bit. And so I've gone around the whole thing. You might find it's a little bit irregular along the top, but right now your goal is to have it the same thickness all throughout. And then it's time to see how you did. And we can prove how well you did if we're going to use, there's some fishing line that's attached to some washers or some buttons in your kit. And this could be made out of string, it could be made out of wire. Fishing line works pretty good because it can go through even some hard clay. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut this in half. Yes, you're going to destroy the thing you just made. So I try to get it so it's like right in the middle and just go down. Pull it down. Now it's not going to go all the way down. I get to the bottom like I didn't make it all the way down, so I'm just going to do a little flip over and finish pulling it through the rest of the way. Now in doing that, it's a lot of fun. If you've never flossed before, it's like that. Also, if you've never flossed before, start flossing. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm checking my work now. How did I do? So the tests of my work, I had a feeling when I did mine that I'd gone just a little bit too far down at the beginning. And once I went there's no going back. But I could feel it. It felt a little bit thinner there. And then all along there, it seemed pretty even, pretty regular all the way through. Slightly thicker right there, maybe the slightest bit here. But I'm much happier having it a little thick on the top part than having it too thin. When it's really thin, it's really easy to have it dry out and crack and break. And if at the end of my work I want it thinner, I could easily do that. So you're doing this and you're testing yourself. And you're like, all right, well, I did pretty good. That's pretty much what I thought it was going to look like. And so now that I did that, it's time to try it again. Now, if you were going along and you were trying to rub out all of the cracks and it seemed like that really wasn't working, I was saying be careful about adding water. I've seen plenty of students over the years just take a ton of water and start going, they're like, this is great because look how smooth it is. But what's happening is all that water is getting into the clay and it's saturating it, and it's really flexible right now, and it's going to become too flexible and it's going to start falling apart. And so while they see the quick fix happening with it's smooth instantly, then all of a sudden it all falls apart and then there's regret. One thing you can do is you could take your sponge. Now it's not full of water. If I squeeze it, I can't get it up. A couple of drips out. So it's not full of water. It's a little bit. So I could go along and I could rub out some of the cracks that way, which is smoothing it, but it's also adding a little bit of that water into the surface. So that's a safe way to do it. Now, if I have it full of water, so when I squeeze it a little bit, it comes pouring out, that's going to be where the problem is. So I can use this. So I like to use my fingers mostly, but if it seems like it's not working at all, getting a little bit of water in there, or possibly even dipping my finger into some water would be the most that I would want to do. So if I had an area that definitely needs some water put into it, I could do that. But again, use caution because you don't want to turn it into slip. And that's essentially what will happen. All right, so once I get to the point that I've done a nice job of going through what I think is going to work out, it's time to take a picture of it. So get set up and take a picture. Now, when you're taking pictures of your clay, it's going to be important to understand a little bit about like how are we going to know what a good job you did when you have a three-dimensional object we're going to be seeing on a computer screen. So it's about angles for one. You want to be able to get the angles so you can actually see things like, oh, this way I can see the shape of it and I can see the wall thickness. If I did it from this side, I'm able to see the form of it, that it seems to be, going out at the same angles and it's not all crazy like that. And so it's about getting into a situation where you can take a good picture. Now, notice what your background is too. Like when you take the picture, does it actually make it more cluttered when you go through and you do your picture taking? All right, so if I'm getting set up for it, I want to try different distances to see how close I can get and try different angles. So with each thing I do, different angle, look at the background. And so you may have to move it somewhere that's a little bit more isolated, like, oh, there's all these things that are behind it and it's distracting. And so you might move to a more neutral location. It might not be the place you're working. It might be somewhere else. So when you're doing this, see there's different things you can do. If you ever wanted to prop it up so you could see, you could prop a piece of clay underneath it if you wanted to have it tipped up that way. But anyway, take a good picture of it where we can see the wall thickness and the evenness of things. And so once you have that, you go ahead and try out a form picture where you can see the angles of everything going up. So I'm kind of sideways to it. And then it's time for the cut through. And this is going to be the real test to see how you did. And so try to find the middle. So lay this down in a way that you can look straight down on it. And once you can look straight down, try to hold it tight like that and really get it right down the middle. And then pull straight down as far as you can. You get to the point where you can go no farther. It's a little tricky at that point. It's starting to separate. I'm just going to take it, flip it over. Careful I don't change the form of it too much. I'm just going to grab both ends here and just pull it straight up. And I shall see how it went. Now I went really thin on this one. I did go just a little bit thicker than the board is. But I'm looking for consistency. I'm looking to see that it is the right thickness all the way through. And notice when you see it on the screen there, like sometimes you can't tell. I'm going to be in that same situation looking at your work. If I can't see it, I can't tell you did, but if I change the angle just a little bit and let the light hit it, now you can see that really well. So as you're taking your pictures, take a picture that shows the thickness. So I'm going to lay it down or stand up, but probably lay it down so I can see it. And so this will show me, and if it seems like it's kind of changing form as I go, I can give a little squeeze here. And then I want to take a picture that shows the thickness. So I get in here, and you might change angles again. That doesn't look good, that doesn't look good, that looks pretty good. And got it. And so I got a picture of it now that you can actually see the walls and see how it goes. So it's here. And so that's it. So now I have a picture of it before it was cut, and I have a picture of it after it was cut. Your goal is to be able to have a picture that you can submit that shows a good job. So for some of you, you're going to do it 3 times because it just wasn't working out. And each time you do it, hopefully it's getting better and better and better. You may be someone that does it 4 times. You may do it 5 times. Whatever it is for you, you want to get to the point where you have really great control over your pinching, really good sensation about when you can tell how thick something is, and when you get to the point that you're like it all feels even, go ahead and see how you did. You test yourself by cutting it in half. So very cool. I hope it went really well for you. At this point, this is an exercise. It's all about learning. We are going to be making things out of pinch pots, so don't worry. You're going to make more. Like, it's okay if we ball this back up again and put it into my bag. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to it because it's a little dried out, and then put it back in my bag. And you could do that by adding a little water like this, a little bit. I'm just going to rub a little bit on the outside, maybe on the inside. And now that water can saturate into it, and then I could do that on the other one as well. Put them in my bag, they're going to be refreshed. So that's all we need to do right now. Hope it went all right for you.